But an untried youngster is going to get his shot. Here he is, Howard Gayle.
Okay, so welcome to the fourth interview of Far Post Header. This week we've got Howard Gayle, the former Liverpool player, and must be pretty happy at the moment with Liverpool winning the league last season, Howard.
Yeah, we are, but it's been a bit of an anticlimax with the issues around this virus and that, and people not being able to socialise, and it takes a lot away from the game, and because we've obviously been waiting 30 years to get back to our normal status, and now that it's arrived and everybody's indoors.
It must be irritating, the fans aren't able to celebrate on the Kop and all gather to celebrate, and even like an open top bus isn't able to be done through the city of Liverpool. Yeah,
and it's part of our DNA really, those trips around the city on an open top bus, and it kind of like prepares the team for the next season, which is imminent. But as I say, it is what it is, and everybody's got to manage their own time in their own way, and hopefully the things will get better.
Indeed, yeah. So if I could start by talking about your career, you grew up in Toxteth. You were one of the sort of many hundreds of kids who obviously wanted to play for Liverpool at the time, and you were lucky enough to get that professional contract. What was it like to finally realise your dreams and get to play at Liverpool?
Yeah, well, I was actually brought up in an area called Norris Green, which is over the north side of the city.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And I moved back down to into Toxteth when I was 17.
Right.
And as I say, playing football on a weekend, on Saturdays and Sunday mornings. There was a really good ambience around the community at that time, where we were leading up to the riots, and there was a lot of militancy around the city. But the summers and that were great, and it was a really good lifestyle. Again, spending Sunday afternoon again with a big game in our local park, and it was really good growing up.
You signed your professional contract just when Liverpool had just won the European Cup in the late 70s. Yeah. So it must have been sort of a pretty exciting time to join at Anfield.
Well, it was as a Liverpool fan. I certainly didn't see that from a playing stance, or from me making it into the Liverpool Football Club, let alone into the squad. Really difficult. There were different times then. There weren't many black players around in football, and to get the opportunity to go to a top club, and with that being the club that I've grown up supporting again, it was a huge sense of pride, not only for me and for my family, but also again for black people around the world, again, to see what it did. It broke down a barrier.
Yes.
That helpfully helped other clubs and other players again with breaking down those barriers, because I made a positive impact.
Indeed, you were the first black player to get a professional contract at Anfield as well, weren't
you? Yeah, and as I say, I've been ever so proud. And at the moment, again, as I say, at that moment, I didn't really see the significance of what I'd done, but it became evident over the years, and with the rising cases of racism again, I was often asked questions about it, and commented on it.
Remember John Barnes saying that it shouldn't really have been sort of such an issue as such. You were just a professional player. Your race is sort of irrelevant in a way, sort of thing. It's just that you're a professional player first and foremost, aren't you, sort of thing.
Yeah, and he's right. And at the same time, again, as I say, that's just the way things were. Again, people see colour before they see ability. And it was somebody else who brought it to me again. I didn't in my wildest dreams think that I was the first, and the significance or the impact that it was going to make on myself, on the club, and also again for future black players coming to the club.
Sure. And Bob Paisley was the manager at the time when you signed your professional contract. He was the most successful Liverpool manager of all time. What was he like as a manager at the time?
Well, as you say, Bob had his own ways, and again he had his own ideas and on how the club was going to move forward. Because obviously, again, he filled in the shoes of the legendary Bill Shankly. So again, a lot of people were wondering whether we could maintain the short spell of success that we'd achieved, and say Bob did it in spades again with the succession of trophy or glory that we call it, that he brought to Anfield.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, European Cups and 6 league titles, so it was sort of became second nature to lift a trophy at the end of the season, didn't it?
Well, it was kind of like expected. They were always on about evolution within the club. They didn't stand still on the laurels when they won the league or in the European Cup. They were always trying to improve the team or the squad.
Definitely, and improving the squad at the time. But when you signed your professional contract, you had Ray Clements as the goalkeeper, Alan Hansen, Edmund Hughes, Steve Highway. They're sort of names that now we just sort of look back and they're all considered icons, some even legends of the club. That must have been fantastic to be even sort of in the same club, and I'd imagine you'd be training with them some days. And how were they in developing your playing style and your...
Well, some of them were good, some of them weren't so good, and as I say, you quickly sort out the ones who wanted to help you, and again, seeing your ability as something that they would like to work to, and some of them see me as a threat. Some of them may not have seen me as an equal, but again, as I say, that's just the way it was, and there was no complaint system back then in the 70s, so you had to endure a lot of the constitution that came your way, and it was kind of like it was non-conscious, but it was always in the back of your mind. Race was always in the back of your mind of how people would treat you and how people would look upon you. Must
have been a very frustrating thing, because as you're trying to make a career for yourself and that's still in your conscience, sort of thing. But
yeah.
The Anfield boot room were famous at that time, and there were all the various coaches that then, Joe Fagan, and he then replaced Paisley at the time. What were they like for your career as a whole?
Well, the other bit of it, what's the phrase for it? Good cop, bad cop. Joe was the good cop and Ronnie Moran was the bad cop.
Oh, right.
And Bob Paisley and Johnny Bennett and Ruben Bennett, Tom Stones, they were all a part of. Jeff Swinton, they were all part of that boot room, and that's where they hatched up the plots in many ways. But as I say, because I was the first in there, I had to win people over.
Sure.
And that was constantly on my mind, that I didn't want to let my teammates down on match days. And again, I was quite confident with myself that I thought that I could play and survive at that level. So it was just a question of getting the opportunities to show people what my ability is and how I can integrate into the squad, into the team.
And 3 years on from signing the professional contract, you made your debut for Liverpool away at Manchester City. When did you find out that you were in the squad for that game?
Well, normally, again, as I say, it was a simple process. Whereas on a Friday morning, you train with the squad that you were going to be with on a Saturday. And say in normal cases, again, it was me. I was training with the reserves. But I was taken away with the first team, and again, as I say, great experience. I was training and playing with the lads every day, but being a part of the match day squad was it was a step up for me. But again, as I say, I thought that they were only going to take me as a 13th man. I didn't know that I was going to be used as a substitute. And as I say, the day worked out well for me. Again, we won 3-0, and I kind of like had a cameo in the last goal, and that was the start of my Liverpool career.
Indeed, and because you came on for David Fairclough, and did you were you aware of sort of this impact of the situation of that you were the first black player at all? No, not at all. It was just Liverpool player coming onto the pitch playing your first game.
That's how I see it again, as I say. And that's again, although again, as I say, me colour and me culture comes before football.
Sure.
I'm there to play football. So while I'm there again, as I say, I've got to be clued in and match ready in case I was called on. I was called on, and you just hopeful again, as I say, that you're not going to make any mistakes.
Yeah, of course. The big game that you're most well known for, the Bayern Munich away game, where Kenny Dalglish picked up a knock early on, and you came on for an hour or so. How did you feel that? It was a big pressured game. First leg drew 0-0. The Anfield, Liverpool needed a goal. How did it feel coming onto the pitch and having to play in a European Cup semi-final?
Well, I kind of like thrived on those type of occasions. The bigger the game again, as I always thought again, the better. And as I say, I didn't expect to get on, but I did. After 17 minutes, Kenny was had an Achilles injury, and the gaffers called on me to get ready. I couldn't even get. I don't think I had a chance to get warmed up. In fact, yeah, I did warm up. Sat down on the bench, and I didn't think it was going to be me, because again, Rushy sat there as well, and Jimmy Case, and they put me on, and it worked.
Indeed, and you know the team at the time, the Bayern Munich team, they had Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, they had Paul Breitner, all players who played in the World Cup final the following year. So this was a good team playing here. But
we were a good team as well.
Well, there is that, yes.
I mean, we had a lot of seasoned internationals in our team, and the four lads who played in that night out of the reserves, me, Sammy Lee, Colin Irwin and Richard Money. Yes. We'd all come from the reserves, but we'd had a good ground and a good background, a good level of knowledge of how the first team played, because we played exactly the same way. So we fitted in. And we had good experienced players around us that night who really stepped up to the plate.
And they then got the 1-1 draw and went through on away goals to the final. And you were booked early on sort of for Retaliation. I've been watching the highlights back on YouTube. There's a video of the full 90 minutes, and it's fair to say that the Bayern Munich players, but they were giving you a good kicking, weren't they, when you were playing? And
yeah, well, the incident that I got booked for, that was the first foul that I committed in the game. I'd been kicked to death, and that was the first foul that I committed, and the referee decided that he's booked all of them, so he was going to book me, and that's how it was. And as I say, the boss again is Resic after the game was they didn't want to be going into the into extra time with 10 men, and I was really disappointed with that, because that was like a lack of trust. And as I say, it was the first foul in the game, and it wasn't malicious or over the top. It was just maybe an act of maybe tiredness. Yeah. But they hauled me off within 5 minutes of that, and as I say, I was very disappointed sitting on the bench and after the game. But most importantly, again, as I say, the result was what mattered. Do
you think that there was looking back, although it was frustrating at the time, that it was the sensible decision to take because of the risk?
No, No, not unless they knew the mentality or of the referee.
Yes.
That he was maybe looking to send me off. But because again, I was the only black player in that stadium of 70,000 people. So again, as I say, I had trust in myself. I've only been sent off once for Liverpool and once for Sunderland, twice in my career.
The next question I was going to ask is, the players were then coming back for the final, and you knew that you wouldn't be able to play in the final. That must have been a big disappointment, or were you sort of thinking, well, if I don't play, then we could win the cup?
No, well, it's always going to be a disappointment as a footballer. As me again, I wanted to be part of it. I would have loved to have been in the starting 11, but I know that again, and I understood that there's a pecking order. And these players again that I was playing with were seasoned pros, and they were playing week in, week out. And here's a young upstart who's come through the ranks, and I've played one or half a semi-final, and I couldn't expect again. As I say, Kenny in his own right at the end of the night again to start again. He was a fantastic player for Liverpool, and I'm sure again all the Liverpool fans again and the staff and the management were hoping that Kenny was going to be fit because he was our talisman, and I understood that. And the boss had said to me again before the game that if Kenny didn't make it, that I was going to play. So I kind of had a feeling that I was maybe going to play a part in the game at some stage, but they didn't need me. As soon I was warming up, ready to go on when Alan Kennedy scored, and with it being so late on in the game, the position was that we had to close the game out again. One goal was enough, and they put Jimmy Case on, the more experienced player.
Yeah, often the way though to bring on the experience is needed. They know how to. They've seasoned pros, as you say. They're the ones that know how to see the game through and to win the cup. But you were given a few opportunities towards the end of that season to play for the first team, and you made your first start at Anfield. What was that like to be able to play in front of the Kop, to go through all of that? Did you touch the "This is Anfield" sign as you go out of?
Yeah, well, I touch that every week, even when you played in reserve games, or even again when we were fortunate to be able to sit on the bench during first team games. Again, you'd always touch that sign, and "This is Anfield." Yeah.
You then sort of went out on loan to players. You went to Newcastle. They had Waddle and Keegan at the time playing for them. That must have been an experience to even play alongside Keegan and another ex-Liverpool player.
Yeah, again, as I say, Kevin had left the year before. In fact, he left in the summer. Yeah, he left in the summer. I think his contract ran out in June, and I signed for Liverpool in the September.
Sure. He was still, even at Newcastle, he was still a fantastic player, wasn't
he? He was even more of an icon up at Newcastle than he was at Anfield. Again, they absolutely loved him up there. Yeah. Again, my mate Terry Mack, again, it was him who was instrumental in getting me up there on loan. And again, as I say, it was a great experience. Again, I'm one of them people who I think are better off playing in front of a full house than a half-empty stadium. Again, I'm one of those players who would thrive on that. And Newcastle again was a full house. They were trying to get promotion out of the old second division into the first division, which is now the Premier League. And Kevin was the talisman. There was a lot of experience in that team, and David McCready, Chris Waddle, Teddy McDermott. It was a really good spell for me, but when the push come to shove, Newcastle couldn't find the money to buy me, and Birmingham City could. So Birmingham City bought me while I was out on loan at Newcastle, and I ended up travelling from Newcastle down to Birmingham just in January, and signed for them just before the deadline.
more another set of passionate fans. You got Birmingham, and then, like you say before that, Newcastle, Liverpool, all passionate fans. It must have been great to be able to play in front of such.
Yeah, and it is. It's a pleasure and it's an honour again when you're playing for clubs who carry big support, home and away. So for me, again, as I say, I remember the game where Birmingham had just got promoted and came to Anfield. I think it was in 73, 74, and they just got promoted and they filled Anfield. I didn't know where, again, my geography wasn't that good. I didn't know where Birmingham was. I knew it was down south. But they brought a huge support to Anfield, and I was taken by that. Because I used to be on the other side of the barrier again with the home fans who were tasked to take on the away fans. But it made a big impression on me, the support that they had that day. And they were 3-1 up after, I think, 17 minutes. I think we won the game 4-3.
Wow.
But it was a fantastic game. But as I say, that impression and that kind of like swayed me in signing for Birmingham. One of the other things that helped me was that my old friend Noel Blake was there. He came to the reserves at Aston Villa. So we played against each other a number of times, but now we were joining forces. And it was a new experience for me because I'm going into a club now where there are black players. And it was a fill-up for me. Again, it was the right move to make leaving Liverpool. And it's a pity again that it all ended in sorrow with getting relegated and Ron Saunders breaking the team up.
But then, opposite to that, you went to Sunderland after them, and they reached the '85 League Cup final. You played most of the games leading up to that, and then you came off the bench at Wembley and played in that League Cup final. What was that like to play in front of such a big crowd at Wembley? Yeah,
again, it was the most of the fans in the stadium when we were our fans. Again, Sunderland carried a huge support, and that was a game that we should have won. We beat Norwich the week before 3-1 in the league, and we missed a penalty in that game. It was a kind of like an unforeseen mistake that what led to their goal. But we didn't do ourselves justice on that day, and again, as I say, the manager brought me off the bench, and I thought he should have started with me because I'd had experience at that level playing in high profile games like that, and some of the players that didn't froze on the day.
And around that sort of time, you'd also played for the under-21s and scored in the European Championships final for them. That must have been an honour to be able to wear the three lions. Yeah,
well, again, as I say, I wouldn't say it was an honour because of the issues around racism that I've had to deal with for most of my life, is that I had to be picky and choosy between national and the honour of playing for England. And again, at that time, John Barnes and Mark Chamberlain had been away with England and being ridiculed on the plane coming back from Brazil after Barnes had scored that wonder goal. So I'd had a conversation with my dad whether or not I wanted to play for Sierra Leone, where my dad came from. And it was the travel that put me off. And maybe again, if I knew now I knew then what I know now, maybe if taken on that challenge of becoming a Sierra Leone or a Ghanaian international.
Of course. You played in the major indoor soccer league over in America as well, I noticed. And I spoke to Keith Hackett, and he said that when they were refereeing there, the pitch that was just sort of like a carpet on concrete, it must have been quite difficult to play in that league.
No, well, most of the arenas that we played in were ice rings. So what they used to do is they used to lay the carpet on top of the ice. So we'd be playing indoor football on a Saturday night. The next night there'd be ice hockey on it on a Sunday.
Oh, wow.
So the stadiums were dual purpose, and your feet would sometimes slip if you've caught an air ball or an air patch on the ice. But again, as I say, it was a great experience playing in Dallas, and we ended up winning the league that year as well. But I craved for the outdoor game. I like that format of playing outdoors in fresh air rather than playing the sort of like the slim down version of football, because the Americans were trying to get the 6-a-side football off to to a standard where it was competing with the 11-a-side football, but it never took off.
And then, so after that last spell in Dallas for the Dallas Sidekicks, you then went back and played for Blackburn and helped them in a small way to get promotion up to the Premier League in that final, what was then the second division at the time.
Yeah, but what's the name again? I got a little bit homesick, and I asked the gaffer over there, Gordon Jago, could I go home, and because I wanted to try and find a club before the transfer deadline, which was normally around the 23rd of March. So we agreed to it, and I came home and I rang around a few clubs, and I remember that Mick Mills at Stoke had tried to buy me while I was at Sunderland.
All right.
And he was manager at Ipswich, so I rang him and I went in and had a trial, and I ended up signing there until the end of the season. They were trying to get into the old first division, and at the end of the season again, as I said, because they didn't, his budget was affected by it, and I rang around a few clubs and rang Blackburn Rovers and Don Mackay, and went and had a week's trial, which turned into a month's trial, which ended up in me playing for them for 5 years.
Brilliant. One final question, I guess, would be how would you like to be remembered for your time in the game? What would you like people to think of you when they mention the name Howard Gayle?
Well, I would like to think that people would look at me as somebody who would be a good team player first, before my own personal glory. But I would like to think that I was honest and I was forthright, and it's somebody again as another player, that somebody who they would want me in their team. But I think that with all the clubs that I play for, you would find that most of the fans would tell you that I give me all for the team and for their team and their club, and I always try my best.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Howard. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Take care.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Howard. That's really good. I'm really grateful for the interview. So thank you very much for your time.
You take care now.
Brilliant. Thank you.